Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for stopping by. I am Jalen.
Only been a few hours, but it felt like days. Only been days, but it felt like months.
Today we're going to be talking about goodbye 20s and hello 30s. Now, some of you are like me, and the journey to 30 was a wild one. But the more that we get closer to 30, it's like a cringe feeling. I don't think I'm by myself on that. 30 has just always seemed so grown, so put together, so figured out. So thinking about it in your 20s, where you feel like, that's right around the corner. It definitely has a different view on it and a different feeling. Now, I know I'm not by myself when I say that growing up in my preteens and teens, did we not have our lives figured out? Like, you couldn't tell me that my life was not going to be structured a certain way. Like, I felt like I was going to go to college at 17, which I did. I was going to graduate. I was going to meet the love of my life in college. We were going to be engaged right out of college. We were going to be married with a kid. I think I said like 24 or 25. Doesn't really matter because it didn't happen. And by 30, like, you were sitting back with your feet kicked up, living the life that you had dreamt of. And that didn't happen. Now, I had always heard growing up that I had like an old soul, and I was always perceived to be older than I was. But getting closer to 30, like, it just always have had so much pressure associated with it. Like, you feel like in your 30s, you don't got no time to waste. And you really don't. But it's just a different sense of self, I think, once you get in your 30s. And we're going to talk about it. Now, this is a no judgment zone. I have lived plenty of lives in my 20s. Now, depending on what year you met me in those 20s, you got a different Jalen in those 20s. So we're going to insert a picture here or here of 20 or 21-year-old Jalen. Like, around this time, I'm super saved, y'all. Like, spooky saved, like, whole nother video. Just too saved to churchy, honey. And by that point, I think I had gotten my first place. Living back home in Memphis. I eventually got a really good job. Well, good for me being there. Everything was just revolved around basically church, to be honest. Like, I had a small friend group, but my friends are my cousins, so I don't know if that counts. But after a while, I ended up feeling like there's more to life. And I know that there is, and I know that there's more outside of this city, and I want it. So I sporadically and spontaneously uprooted my life there and moved to a brand new city by myself, which I'm so proud of myself for doing. And I got here and basically just hit the ground running. Like, I've always been very social, kind of like a popular loner, if you will, because I've always known of people, or people know of me, but not really getting too close, like, to be in my business. I didn't know anyone personally here, but I did know people from like college. They kind of lived not too far around, and I started doing pretty okay. Of course, it was challenging in a new city. I ended up meeting a guy whom I thought I was going to get married to, and we were hopelessly in love. We fell in love in like 4 business days, which should have been a red flag. And so around the time things didn't work out with that, I ended up just really pivoting my life and just really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, who I wanted to be, because even though our 20s are for you learning, making mistakes, bumping your head, like I said, I was always much more mature for my age. So I'm like, I don't want to be spending my 20s in these new years in this new city, just kind of going through the motions. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be more intentional with the things that I was doing. So I started living life and trying to see, what I wanted out of life. I mean, of course, there was some partying, some fun, some stupid situationships, you know what I mean? The normal things that every woman goes through, that everybody goes through. But eventually I did notice a shift, I think around like 28, where I was like, wow, the more people like, oh my God, you're almost 30, you're almost 30. I'm like, oh, I am. Like, how did I forget? I don't know. I wasn't keeping up. And the closer, like I said, that I was getting to 30, around like 28, 29, was when I was kind of starting to think, like, I don't know, have I accomplished everything I wanted? What are some better goals I can set? Like, I just started reflecting, and I think I unconsciously started making small changes here or there. And anyone to tell you, those small changes and habits that you make end up being a part of the bigger picture, which it was for me, thankfully. So we're just going to talk about 3 things that I have learned from my 20s and entering into my 30s. Now, I don't know how it ended up being 3 M's, but I promise you it wasn't done on purpose. The first one is maturing. Relationships, friendships, desires, tastes, like all of it changing and maturing. One of the things that I've taken into my 30s with me that I've learned in maturing in my 20s is that if it doesn't directly affect me, let it go. You know, like certain hardships that we bring upon ourselves, like life's going to deal you the cards life's going to deal you anyways. So it's like adding on extra pressures and trials that you don't need, negativity that you don't need. It's like, I've gotten to the point where if it doesn't directly affect me and my day-to-day or my end goal with my life, I can't begin to be bothered with it. And that's not to say that I'm not going to be connected or concerned or listening to people around me's problem, because it's just not the person I am. It's more so not letting it consume me. Sometimes we are so much more invested and engulfed with everyone else's things around us that we started to let it fester, and then now your problem has become a group problem, and it doesn't need to be that way. It's not intended to be that way. So I definitely have learned that, you know, if you like it, I love it. That's the best way to say it. Like, if you like it, I love it, and we're just gonna leave it there. Another part of that maturing is balancing. And I talked about this in a previous video, that balance is so important. Being able to say no, being able to have certain boundaries there, and being able to allocate time for you, your work, your friends, your partner, your spouse, your kids. That balance is literally like the key to holding like the whole fort together. And I definitely used to struggle with that balance a little bit. I thought I was doing a good job until I realized that I wasn't checking off some of my goals and finishing the things that I wanted to do and being more proactive in producing for myself. And I started to realize, like, dang, if I spent this much time throughout the year doing this, I could have gotten this accomplished for me. So making sure I put that on my frontal lobe and kind of prioritizing and compartmentalizing different things like that definitely have helped me with the balance. Another thing I have learned is reinventing myself. Reinventing yourself is not negative. Like, there's nothing wrong with waking up or having a pivotal moment in your life, an epiphany, where you realize you want different. Like, what I want is different. My desires are different. The way I dress is different. The way I speak is different. The people I want to entertain is different. Heck, the food I eat is different. And I don't think there's anything wrong with reinventing yourself, especially if you're doing it for you. Like, if you know that you changing up these things, whether they're small or they're drastic, is going to help you be the better version of yourself, the most productive, maximized potential version of yourself, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now, I know that some of us have a habit of changing aesthetically, like, oh, I'm going to change up my hair, I'm going to change up the way I dress. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because when you look good, you do feel good. But not just aesthetically, like doing the work on the inside, reinventing all of the things that you can't see on the outside. The other part that I have learned into my 30s is the mourning. And I don't think it's talked about enough. If it is, I just hadn't seen it. That death to the old habits, the old ways, and certain friendships, that can be pretty hard. That can be tough. And it can definitely be tough to articulate when you don't even know what it is you're feeling, or if you're supposed to be feeling that, or what has garnered this kind of feeling that you have. And we're going to talk about it now. Now, these changes can be like small, like things like what you eat. And I noticed it myself, like growing up, don't put onions and peppers in my food. Now I can't eat anything without, like when I cook, it's gonna go in everything. I'm sorry, it just goes. It goes with everything. Y'all was on to something all along. So it can be small habits or things like that change, and then it can go to the opposite end of that spectrum and literally be like death to a friendship, a 10-year friendship, 15-year friendship, out of nowhere. Which is why I am careful that I don't pray that removal prayer, because I am nervous. I'm not gonna lie that God is gonna snatch up my favorite friend, But I definitely have seen stories and heard stories about people who have prayed that God remove people that aren't supposed to be in their life, and instantly, a situation happens, or, they have a falling out. And it's like, realistically, that's scary. This person knows your business. You guys have had memories together, ups and downs together, to within a blink of an eye, they're no longer in your space and in your life and doing life with you, things that you guys had planned. And I don't know, that's kind of difficult for me to process. I haven't had that personally happen to me a lot, not that I can think of off the top of my head. Definitely 1 or 2 times. And I don't think it affected me negatively like it does some people who aren't like built tough or built for it. But I think that's where you start to learn that as you get older and you enter into your 30s and 40s and for the rest of your life, not all friendships are the same. Not all relationships are meant to be the same. Some people are seasonal. Some people are meant to just teach you something. Some people, the relationship you have with them is going to change. You guys may have had a lot in common throughout high school or college or your 20s, but now entering into another phase, another chapter of your life, you guys just aren't going into the same way, having the same journey, the same destination. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just being able to be mature and have those conversations, and there be no bad blood or there be no beef or anything like that. It's just, you have your path, yeah, and I have my path, and there's literally nothing wrong with that. And the last thing, which is the most important to me, is the motivational piece of it. Like having a different sense of self and desire and ambition, leaving your 20s and like bossing up into your 30s. To me, I went into my 30s like with my shoulders pulled back. I didn't really live with a lot of regret or like do too much reflecting on all of the negatives. I mean, I had to evaluate them, but not really harping on them, I think, was the key. Just having that ambition to want to apply everything that you went through in your 20s into your 30s. Like, I think that's the key. Like, did you learn anything? What can you grow from? What's a character flaw you notice? What's something you can shift and change? What's something you can compromise on? Like, I think that's the best part of it. I definitely have noticed I start to plan and prepare differently, like just thinking more forward. I'm not worried about like right now. In my 20s, I was all about the present. Like, I'm only living for right now. And there's still a little bit of that in there, but I am more forward thinking and planning and investing in myself, in my health, in my money. You know what I mean? Like, I think that thought process just starts to grow up realistically. And I'm happy that it did, because the shift has to happen. Like, for me to do all those great things I want to do and talk about balance and preparation and doing the things that are on my goals and bucket list, like, you have to be able to have your things in order to do those things. And so it all ends up being very cohesive. So to wrap this video up, I definitely would say that everything I learned and went through in my 20s, although there were a lot of lows that I did not discuss here because that's for me, there were a lot of highs and things that I would like to pat myself on the back for moving into my 30s in this next chapter and phase of my life. I did move to a brand new city. It was scary. I met a lot of new people. A lot of great relationships came out of those. A lot of good memories. I wrote a book, 2 books, thanks to my BFF Ken. I started a freaking podcast that was great and successful, if I do say so myself. I got me a nice corporate Bay job. Like things were great. I can't say that they weren't. I can see how it's starting to all make sense. All those times where I was praying or I may have been sad, like, God, what is happening? What are you doing? I can say that they all are working out for me. They all are lining up for me. And I'm excited about my 30s. I'm 30 and thriving. What are all those little sayings? Like 30 and thriving, talk 30 to me. There's some other ones. Anyways, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for me and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for supporting and watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.